Hello everyone, welcome to the first video in my Bedrock Redstone Crash Course. In this Crash Course series, I'll be teaching and learning myself everything there is to know about Redstone, from what components can be used and how they work, to much more complicated topics like logic gates and monostable circuits. Along the way, I'll be showcasing different Redstone contraptions not built by me, so we can understand how all this knowledge ties together to make really amazing things. Now, I've never played on the Java edition, I have always played on the Bedrock edition. Since Redstone is much different between the two editions, this series will be focused on how Redstone works on the Bedrock edition only. I will note from time to time why the Redstone works differently between the two editions, but all the contraptions we make will be Bedrock ready. This series is going to assume that you have no prior Redstone knowledge. And I know, Minecraft's been out for a very, very long time, and if you've ever played Minecraft, you've played with Redstone. But just to cover all the bases, we're going to start from the very beginning. To start off the series, we're first going to go over how Redstone works and all the different components that can be used in Redstone to build your contraptions. The best way for me to describe how Redstone works is it's like electricity. It's a power source. And Redstone dust and other components carry that power source to different objects which all do different things. So starting out with your power components, these are the inputs of your Redstone contraptions, or like I said earlier, think about them like the plug-in on your wall. There are many different components that make a Redstone signal. First, we have the Redstone block, which is always in a constant state of power. Next, we have the Redstone torch, which starts off in a state of power, but can be turned on and off. Next, we have the lever, which is pretty self-explanatory. It's just an on and off switch, like your light switch at home. Next, we have the button, which is like the lever, but it doesn't stay on, it actually turns off over time. Next, we have the pressure plate, which if you stand on it, gives it a redstone signal, and when you step off of it, it goes away. Next, we have the observer, which is one of my favorite blocks. It actually observes the state of the block in front of it. So if I press a block down right here, you can see that it turned on for a second, and if I turn it off, or I take it away, it turns off. Next, we have the tripwire hook, which you just walk through, it sends a signal on it, and when you step out of it, it turns off. Next is the trap chest, which you can see coming out of the back of it right here. When you open the chest up, it puts out a redstone signal. This is really good for traps, and I have fallen for it a many a times. Next, we have the activator rail, which is this one right here. You can see the minecart, every time it goes over it, the light turns on, and then gradually over time, it goes off. Then we have the daylight sensor, which is pretty cool because it can detect not only daytime, but nighttime as well. And it actually doesn't just put out one constant state. Depending on what time of day it is, it puts out a different level of redstone signal. Next is the newest addition to the Redstone family, which is still missing a bit of functionality from the Java edition, but it is still pretty cool because you can shoot it and get a redstone signal. And this works not only with arrows, but anything like fireballs, splash potions, any of that. Shoot it, and you get a redstone signal. Lastly, we have the lectern, which puts out a different redstone signal every time you turn the page. The next section of components is the transmission components, and there's really only 3 components in this category. The redstone dust, the repeater, and the comparator. Redstone dust, like you saw in the first section, is what carries the power from the input to the output, whatever that may be. But on its own, it can only go so far. In fact, it can only go up to 15 blocks. So you see here, if we place a block that's 16 blocks away, it won't get powered. And that is where the repeater comes in. So I have one repeater here, and it's going to take the redstone signal and I guess amplify it is the right term for that. And that way it can go from this point forward, it can go another 15 blocks. Repeaters can also create a delay in the redstone signal by right-clicking on them to adjust the delay, and you can also make the delay even longer by adding even more repeaters. Lastly, in the transmission section, we have a comparator, which acts a lot like a repeater if all you're doing is running power straight through it. But it actually has a lot of unique properties, one of which being that it can actually tell how full containers are, like hoppers or chests. And you can see here, by that lamp right over there, if I start throwing items in here, as soon as I throw in this last one, the power will reach all the way down there and turn on that lamp. This can be very useful because you can use it almost like a countdown system that as this hopper empties, the redstone signal gets less and less until it's completely emptied into that chest. Comparators, unlike repeaters, can actually take a redstone signal from the side as well. And this is super useful because you can flip this thing over into subtract mode. And this mode actually takes the signals from the side and subtract it from the signal from the rear to give you an output. So for this example right here, if I hook this redstone desk up to this lever as well, you can see that that signal was sent into here and subtracted, turning off the power. And this is super useful because you can use it to create things like this, where it's constantly subtracting and adjusting the redstone signal. And this is awesome because you can use it to create things like this. And the last section is where all the fun happens. We have the mechanisms. Starting over here with the dropper and the dispenser, they look very similar and their functionality is a lot alike. They both spit out items when you place them in it, except for they're a little different because the dropper spits out any item that you put in it, while the dispenser will actually dispense some items like fireballs, arrows, water, lava. There's quite a bit that you can put in here that it'll actually just dispense out. And this is pretty cool because you can make like cannons. Next, we have the simplest of mechanisms. Yep, it's doors. Redstone can open doors, trap doors, fence gates, all the different variants of them. It can open anything. Next, we've got the hopper, which you can see I've got 3 of them hooked up to this furnace right here. One going into the top for whatever we're smelting, one going into the side for fuel, and one outputting into this chest. So whatever gets smelt gets put into this chest. And the reason this is a redstone component is because you can actually control whether or not the hopper is on using redstone. And this is super, super useful because you can use it for things like super smelters and item sorters. Next is the redstone lamp, which I've been using for most of this video already, but it's pretty simple. It just takes a redstone signal and the light comes on. Next, we have something that's honestly super useful in this game, and it allows you to move blocks, and that is the piston and the sticky piston. And you can pretty much tell the difference between the two. The piston here actually lets go of the block after it's done extending, and you can see it just is pushing this block around. But the sticky piston, however, holds on to the block. So you can see it pushes it up, but it also pulls it back down with it. Next, we have 2 redstone components, which I've never used before. And I'm going to be honest, before this video started, I did not know that this dragon head was a redstone component. But if you come over here, you can see that when a redstone signal is sent through it, the armor stand actually changes its position, and you can change it between multiple positions. Right now, I just have him kind of doing what looks like a dab, and then the dragon head, it just flops its mouth up and open. Then we have the bell, which doesn't have a super lot of functionality. It does what you'd expect it to. The bell rings, but if you combine this with a bunch of doors and hide them around your friend's base, you can make something pretty annoying. Next, we have the note block, which makes music. And it's really cool because you can actually change the note that it plays, and you can also change what type of instrument it is by changing the block underneath it. And I'm going to be 100% honest with you. Before I started this video, I was like, oh, I'll make some kind of song. I'll make some kind of song to play when I do this. This is all I came up with. So to all of the people out there who make music with note blocks, coming from somebody who plays an actual instrument, I don't see how you do it. This is a lot of work. Next, we have the activator rail and the power rail. And using my lovely volunteers here, the powered rail actually makes the minecart speed up and maintain momentum, while the activator rail will activate anything in the cart. So even if it's a player or a mob in the cart, it'll shake it out. But if it's like a hopper or a chest or even TNT, if it's TNT, it'll make the TNT explode. Speaking of TNT, it is actually the last component in this section. And of course, before I activate this, I'm going to rightfully switch into survival. Yep, that's pretty much what you'd expect to happen. That TNT actually went a lot farther than I expected it to. I'm glad it didn't blow up any of my redstone, but that is all of the mechanisms. And that's actually going to be everything I have for this Bedrock Redstone Crash Course. But before we go, I'd like to, at the end of each video, showcase one of my favorite redstone contraptions. And today's one is going to be a super simple one, but probably one of the most useful, and that is the auto dispenser. So using what we learned from the comparators and the repeaters and being able to send the signal back into the comparator, you can make a dispenser that dispenses anything while it has something in it. And this is really super useful because you can use it, well, to make a beautiful fireworks display, or you can use it for something like item transportation, moving items up through water, and really, really awesome stuff. Next time we'll be looking at more complex contraptions and different kinds of circuits. And if you made it to the end of the video, leave me a comment down below letting me know what your favorite contraption is. If you enjoyed the video, leave it a like, and if you want to see the next episode, subscribe.